Josh Pate says Texas is playing for their season this Saturday. Meanwhile, I'll tell you why Auburn losing a home game next year is not a good thing. Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Gordy. On today's show, we will get you caught up on all the latest news going on around the conference. Also, give you my thoughts on the news that Auburn versus Baylor moving to a neutral site next year. I'm Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to Everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download FanDuel today. All right, let's dive into it, as we got to start with some news over at Ole Miss right out of the gates, because there is some news on their quarterback. Obviously, Austin Simmons started the season. Trinidad Chambliss took over, and he has been awesome for them, but a little bit of, is there going to be musical chairs here? Number 4, Ole Miss getting ready to host Washington State this weekend. It looks like Trinidad Chambliss will be under center once again, but Lane Kiffin asking about his quarterback situation, as obviously Austin Simmons getting closer to a return to the field and being fully healthy. Lane Kiffin asked about the quarterback situation, said, yeah, I heard this week that Trinidad is in the Heisman race, and we don't even know if he's playing Saturday or not. Of course, Chambliss has turned into according to some websites, a Heisman Trophy candidate because of what he has done for Ole Miss so far, and sitting there as a top 5 team. Ole Miss ranked 6th in passing yards, 25th in rushing yards this season. But Kiffin went on to say he still believes in the potential of Austin Simmons, who has a career 155.9 passer rating. He said, we're in a great place. I mean, we have two great quarterbacks, two quarterbacks that are better than a lot of people's number 1 quarterback. It's awesome to be in this position. So we assume we'll see Trinidad Chambliss out there for Ole Miss on Saturday as they host Washington State, heavy favorites in this one. How about getting ready for Red River over there in Dallas? Joel Klatt talking this week about why Oklahoma is what he called a grenade in the SEC. He said, good chance that these two teams, that the two teams, Alabama and Oklahoma, have 2 losses based on their schedules. Let's just say hypothetically John Napier is not totally right, and they do lose a couple of games. Well, here we go. Now you're going to go to Alabama. At this point, Oklahoma is basically the grenade of the SEC. If Oklahoma is real, they're just going to start eliminating teams. Texas, maybe Tennessee, maybe Alabama at this point, maybe Missouri later in the year, maybe LSU. But if they just start splitting all those games and they go 3-3 and they finish as a 9-3 team, they could be knocking themselves and everybody else out. OU is kind of a linchpin team for the college football playoff the rest of the way. Klatt went on to say this is a really important game, the Alabama game, because Alabama, they could be fighting for their playoff lives, and we might be watching an elimination game. So just kind of an interesting thought that, the SEC, the parity, plays itself out, and you find out with a bunch of 9-3 SEC teams. And then, look, I think with the added component of strength of schedule this season, that you'll have a case for some SEC teams based on their resume wins. Remember, focus on wins, not losses. Yes, 3 losses in the old formula would knock you out. You can't get in with 3 losses. But if you got 4 top 20 or, top 15 wins and you got a couple losses, I think they will, the committee has said that they're going to reward really good wins rather, over losses. So anyway, we'll see how that one plays out. But more on the Red River rivalry game. Josh Pate speaking this week and saying that this is their season. He was on with ESPN's Greg McElroy on his podcast, saying this is Texas's season. We will be looking back at this Oklahoma game as either the point where the entire season went south for Texas, or it was their turning point. That thing, whatever that is that happens, people start to develop the habit of thinking that you kind of are what you are. Maybe by week 10, week 3, 4, or 5 college football seasons, we shall see. But the Longhorns are still the favorite, according to FanDuel, over the Sooners. 2:30 Central, ABC will be the kickoff. But Pate said the Red River rivalry appears to be the crucial inflection point of the season for the Longhorns. And I've said this week. I mean, regardless of what happens at quarterback for Oklahoma, whether it's Michael Hawkins or John Napier does get back on the field, it's all about Arch Manning to me. You know, if Texas can get that complimentary run game going, obviously that'll take some pressure off of him. But is this the game where Arch has his coming out party or gets sacked a ton and continues to get bashed, as The Athletic wrote this week, which I thought was a little bit ridiculous if you guys saw the article, but it was titled Arch Manning College Football's First Flop. Can we let the man finish his college career before we start calling him a flop? Can we see him play an entire college football season as a starter first? So just something to keep an eye on. All right, other news going on around the conference. How about over at Mizzou? We got some news on Eli Drinkwitz talking with the media ahead of the matchup against Alabama, and Drink complimenting Ty Simpson. He said, watching on film, Ty Simpson makes very good decisions. He's not easily deceived with disguise. He's unaffected by pressure. He has the ability to escape it. You kind of have to pick your poison. If we play zone, he's going to pick us apart. If we blitz, he's going to stand in there and identify the one-on-one matchup and take it. He's just really good. Drinkwitz added that Simpson's mobility, particularly on third downs, makes it even tougher to get Alabama off the field in key situations. On the season, Alabama converting 52% of their third downs. That ranks 17th in the country. Mizzou, on the other side, they lead the nation in third down conversion rate at 61%. So two good offenses. We'll see what the defenses do starting at 11 a.m. Central on ABC, Alabama and Missouri. Now, on the other side, Kalen DeBoer asked about this Missouri team, and he had a lot of good things to say, particularly about their running back, Ahmad Hardy. Kalen DeBoer saying statistically, he has a missed tackle, and it shows up on film. Every other carry, he just keeps plays alive. People think they've got him down, and he still keeps running. The yards after contact will just blow your mind. Now, for Alabama, they are going to Alabama's going to try to be the first team to hold Ahmad Hardy under 100 yards rushing this season. We'll see if they are able to do that. But speaking of Kalen DeBoer, there is obviously legend being drawn to his black hoodie that he has been wearing on the sidelines, and a lot of discussion about that during a recent appearance on Bussin' with the Boys. DeBoer talked about the superstition. He said, look, it's funny how something you've done for so long all of a sudden becomes a thing. I mean, that's what I've been comfortable with wearing for years. It does get washed. I promise you, there's been a couple of hot games in the last couple of weeks. He said, it's funny that it's taken a bit of life of its own. And guys in my family, daughters, they see it all. They've even kind of keep putting pressure on me. Coach, you can't let us down. Got to wear the sweatshirt. So we will see how the hoodie holds up on Saturday when the Tide head to Columbia. Other SEC news. How about the Florida Gators? Obviously coming off of a great win over Texas. Going to see if they can keep this thing going. And Greg McElroy on his podcast seems to think that Gators could be a problem for a lot of teams down the stretch. He said, if you watch this game, this team needed hope. They looked like a team in a free fall, especially with how unproductive the offense had been. But then they had over 450 yards on offense. DJ Lagway looked like the guy we all thought he would look like. And Florida's defense has a lot to like as well. So, look, can Billy Napier save his job? That is the question, but certainly looks like a much better Florida team. We're going to see what they can do on the road at Texas A&M this coming weekend. How about over Kentucky? They're having their bye week this week before they host Texas next week. And Kentucky Sports Radio's Matt Jones saying on Wednesday that he believes that Kentucky can indeed afford to pay Mark Stoops his $37 million buyout if Kentucky were to finish either 3-9 or 4-8 on the season. Now, right now, the Wildcats are off to a 2-3 start, but that includes an 0-3 record in the SEC. Stoops is 58 years old. Obviously, he's had some great years in Lexington, but last year and this year, not going so well. Well, appearing with Andy and Ari on 3, he said the $37 million that would be owed to Stoops, should Kentucky decide to buy him out, would all be due within 60 days. But he said a 3-9 record is doomsday. I think 4-8 is pretty close to doomsday. 6-6, he's fine. 5-7 is a scenario that I don't think anybody would be happy, but they probably just because of the $37 million would swallow it and deal with it. So you got to wonder where Kentucky's going to finish. 3-9 or 4-8. Matt Jones seems to think that would be the end for Mark Stoops in Kentucky. So, granted, look, so much is made of these coaches and their buyouts and, they're going to be able to afford to pay that, all this. Keep in mind, Kentucky saved a lot of money when John Calipari left them for the Arkansas job. They didn't have to pay him a buyout or anything. So, look, they're paying Mark Pope a good bit of money, but they seem to think that they've got the money, or at least Matt Jones seems to think that Kentucky's got the money if they did need to buy out Mark Stoops if this season continues to go sideways. That would be back-to-back really rough seasons there at Kentucky. And it stinks because Mark Stoops has had a really great run for Kentucky, bringing them back to relevance in football. And having, a down year for them was considered 6-6 and going to a bowl game when a lot of years in previous regimes, they could never get to bowl games. But this little backstretch run here for Mark Stoops not going the best. All right, still more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. On return, we'll talk about the news came out a little bit earlier this week about Auburn and Baylor moving to Atlanta. We'll discuss that in just a second. Hey, but first, look, when the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting on projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. If you need parts for fast for a project, Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. And, of course, their Trade Master perks like priority shipping, dedicated support, makes the whole process smoother. You can join the free Trade Master program today, and you're going to score serious perks like that priority shipping, lower prices, dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com, sign up for free, and use our promo code SHCollege5. I'll get you 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. This episode also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. And, of course, NFL season, college season, we're in the midst of it. And FanDuel still got that great offer going that you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and you will get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. You pick a bet, you put down $5. If it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And we tell you, of course, all the great SEC matchups up there for you. If you want to get on those betting lines at FanDuel.com, it's there for you. And you can build parlays, you can do player props, you follow the live lines during games. It makes football watching even more exciting when you got a little something on the action. So whether you're a casual fan, you love diving into all the deep stats, Stat Geek, FanDuel will make the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com. Download the FanDuel app today to get started. That is at FanDuel.com. We're along here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And I want to spend a couple minutes here on the news that came out earlier this week. If you missed this, the news came out that Auburn is going to move their 2026 game against Baylor to Atlanta. And a big motivating factor here is for NIL benefits. So 2026 home game, Auburn hosting Baylor, will move to Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. This is part of an arrangement with the Affleck kickoff game that is going to provide NIL opportunities for Auburn players. This is the first in college football when it comes to neutral site games. But the Peach Bowl, in coordination with the Affleck game and the title sponsor, they are going to provide opportunities for promotional appearances for Auburn players, promoting ticket sales, ancillary events, all this. And the move is being made in order to yield up to, quote, $5 million in NIL opportunities for Auburn student athletes. That's according to Brett McMurphy of On3. But the game moving to Atlanta is On3 rights will allow greater NIL opportunities for the Tigers and their student athletes. It isn't hard to see why Auburn would make this move, as it'll also allow more eyes on their product when the time comes. Now, John Cohen, Auburn athletic director, he said, anytime we have the ability to advance Auburn student athletes' ability to earn third-party NIL compensation, we will take that opportunity. The exposure of playing on a national stage against a Power 4 opponent is one of the premier neutral site games in the country, will not only benefit our student athletes financially, but also enhance their brands. Look, I get all of that part, but there is a financial implication on the backside. And the Opelika Auburn News had a pretty good piece up writing that basically the lost revenue, the impact of a lost scheduled home game for Auburn likely means the loss of millions in economic impact, with the Auburn Tourism Group estimating that one home football weekend in Auburn last season brought in just over $8.7 million of revenue to the area. That goes away in moving this game over to Atlanta. So this isn't just an implication on oh, great, the players are getting more money, but the Auburn community is losing money. And as the Opelika News writes, he said, while the move is designed to bring more money to Auburn players, the loss of the scheduled home game affects more than just the university on a game day weekend. College towns across the country thrive during game day weekends, and many local economies are centered around the thousands of people that come to town each weekend. They even did a study that, according to Iowa, back in 2010, they estimated the economic impact for a 7-game Hawkeyes homestand exceeded $100 million just to their town. So Baylor and Auburn, they, of course, met this year in Waco. Baylor got the home game, but Auburn's going to lose the home game here, all in the name of trying to get more money for the student athletes. I think we're all fine with the players and student athletes getting the money, but it's just you start to think about the restaurants and hotels and everything in the Auburn area. They all lose that revenue with a lost home game. Now, Auburn will receive an allotment of 20,600 tickets for this game. Baylor will receive the SEC standard 3,000 tickets for visiting teams, and the Affleck kickoff will sell the remaining inventory. So they will still call this, by letter of law, technically an Auburn home game, but game will mark just the 6th time that Baylor and Auburn have met, dating back to 1954. Now, the tough part here is we're moving to the 9-game conference schedule next year. So Auburn already has 5 road games next year, and this is a brutal schedule. Whether Hugh Freeze is still the coach there or not, look at what Auburn's got to do. They got to go to Alabama. They got to go to Georgia. They got to go to Ole Miss, to Tennessee, and to Mississippi State. And then they've got home games against Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Florida, and LSU. So that's their 4 SEC home games. And then they'll get, do the math, 2 cupcake home games against whoever they play, because their tough non-conference game is going to be Baylor, which is now going to be in Atlanta. But that's 6 games away from not being played at Jordan-Hare next year. And again, only 6 home games at Jordan-Hare is, the financial impact on that community, it's going to hurt. Unless there's some way to get, Auburn fans to stop and eat at all the restaurants in Auburn on their way, the 2-hour drive up to Atlanta. Again, you're not going to make up that revenue. But one other thought here on this: Kirby Smart was asked about this move this week at his weekly SEC coaches teleconference, and Kirby said it's very interesting. I don't know if you say it's the tip of the iceberg. I don't know where this is headed. I got no clue. I mean, I'm focused on Auburn and trying to figure out how to make our team better right now, so I don't really fully understand what's going on there. But he said people have reached out to us since about opportunities that would be there and potentially moving to a neutral site game or something like that. He said, I think you got to be careful because you're working for 2 different groups. You're working to generate revenue for your players, which is the lifeblood of the program, but you're also trying to entertain and make sure your customers, the home ticket fans, the alumni, the people who buy your seats are just as engaged. So, of course, it is a touchy subject, but, look, again, Athens is a great environment and great home, another community that's got a lot of sports bars, restaurants, hotels, everything that thrives off of a home game weekend for a Georgia game. So, again, we'll see what ends up happening with this and what the evolution will be. Like I said, I think many of us are for players making money. I don't think anybody wants to, have players make less and all this. And if there are more revenue opportunities, schools are going to look at this as, hey, this is a great opportunity to go get more money and have a big title sponsor like an Affleck or whoever write a big check and, yes, create revenue opportunities around an event like this that they can get players NIL money. And like we said, the report is $5 million in revenue to Auburn players. It's fantastic. But just the implications of what's lost in the community of that college town, this is going to be the fallout here. But also good luck to Auburn on that schedule next year. Good Lord, that is a absolutely brutal schedule. When we return here, we actually have some updated latest odds on our next head coach to be fired in college football. Of course, Sam Pittman already fired, and a couple SEC coaches high on this list. We will discuss that coming up next right here on Locked On SEC. Hey, but first, message from our friends over at Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda, they deliver confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes, they sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how they craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from the smooth handling to the intuitive controls. And with the all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you could drive with confidence throughout almost any season. And just like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. It is Mazda. If you're thinking of buying a new vehicle, I encourage you to go check out our friends over at Mazda. Mazda, move and be moved. This episode also brought to you by our friends at Quo. One of the tools that help make a huge difference for business owners out there is Quo, formerly Open Phone. It is the same great business phone system you've heard us talk about before, just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table for your business. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. And Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. Works right through an app on your phone or computer. So no more carrying around 2 cell phones or relying on a landline. Quo is going to take care of you. Whether you're a solo operator juggling everything or part of a larger team, Quo makes it easy to stay responsive and professional. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly Open Phone. Get started and for free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedoncollege. That is QUO.com/lockedoncollege. And if you've got an existing number with another service, Quo will port those numbers over at no extra charge. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. All right, roll along here, Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Before we get out of here, some of those betting websites out there like to put out some updated odds for different things. And one out there has the latest odds on the next college football head coach to be fired. And right at the top of this list, he made a move the last couple of weeks. Luke Fickell, sitting right up there at the top at plus 150. James Franklin at plus 250. I get living in the moment. Penn State, they were a top 10 team, top 5 team, right? Just 2 weeks ago. They lose a home game in overtime to Oregon. Okay, not a bad loss. Wasn't home for a big whiteout. But then they go on the road and lose to terrible UCLA. So James Franklin jumps up this list. But how about the next 4 names on this list? All SEC coaches. Hugh Freeze, now the favorite, odds-on favorite right now to be the next college football, next SEC head coach fired at plus 300. I think they're banking on he's 0-2 in the SEC. If he loses the Georgia this weekend, that's 0-3, and so on and so forth. If Auburn keeps losing a bunch of games, and let's just say this season goes super sideways for Auburn and they go 4-8 or something like that. Yeah, I think you're looking at a potential releasing of Hugh Freeze. Now, if they get the offense back on track, they pull off a major upset of Georgia this weekend, hey, maybe we're talking about Hugh Freeze knocking himself down this list and being just fine. Billy Napier is second on this list at plus 600. Obviously, we know the road ahead for the Florida Gators. It is still a brutal schedule, despite their big win over Texas this past weekend. They got Mark Stoops, the third SEC coach on this list, at plus 700. I think those odds are, look, it's a massive buyout. We talked about it just a few minutes ago, but it's just not going great for Mark Stoops. And the schedule is tough for Kentucky as well. So we'll see. Again, I would put probably, I think this is fair. In fact, like if I'm putting like most likely to be fired this season, I think Napier's very up there. I think Mark Stoops is very up there. Hugh Freeze, I think, can have a decent season and save himself. And then, again, this is a betting list. They put Steve Sarkisian on this list at plus 800. Season's not going great for Texas. I just don't see a world where Sark gets fired. He's got a massive buyout, and he's a pretty good coach. He's gotten to the semifinals back-to-back years. This is just a rebuilding year with Arch Manning taking over and a new offensive line and all that. And just for grins, they have Deion Sanders up here at plus 1,200 at Colorado. One other graphic I wanted to take a look at, they put out the odds for next Arkansas head coach. This came out a couple days ago, so we'll see if it gets updated over the next couple weeks. But they still have Rhett Lashley, SMU head coach, number one on the list at plus 300. Ryan Silverfield at Memphis at plus 400. John Summerall at Tulane plus 600. GJ Kinney at Texas State plus 700. Gus Malzahn at plus 800. Mike Gundy at plus 800. And Bobby Petrino, they actually put on this list at plus 900. I'll tell you this right now. If they go into Tennessee and give the Vols some problems there in Knoxville this weekend, maybe they don't win the game, but the offense looks really good and the team plays inspired. Again, Petrino said he'd like to put his name in the hat to be considered for, next head coach at Arkansas. So he's going to have the rest of the season to kind of show what he can do. My question, though, is like, what does success look like, right? Because I think it's just given what Arkansas's personnel is and everything involved. They fired all the defensive coaches. It's too much to me to ask to win a bunch of games when you got, top 12 Tennessee, number 5 Texas A&M, number 11 LSU, number 14 Missouri, still got Texas, still got Auburn, still got Mississippi State. Look, if he can find 4 more wins on the schedule at 2 and 3, let's say they find a way to win at home against Auburn, find a way to win against Mississippi State, that gets them to 4 wins. They're going to have to pull off 2 other upsets, whether it's on the road at Texas, whether it's, like we said, on the road at Tennessee this weekend, home against A&M, or that home game against Missouri at the end of the season. It's just it's tough to find 4 more wins for Tennessee. But if he does that, if he goes 6-6 and they go to a bowl game, I think Bobby Petrino very much in the conversation to earn that Arkansas job. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. Thank you guys so much for making us your first listen every day. Remember to like and subscribe to our podcast on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. Come on back tomorrow, and we'll talk to you then.